go.
Ah, hello again, brother.
Hello, hello.
Now, I have something new for you and your viewers today.
Ooh, all right.
Uh, for those of you on the YouTubes, what I have put together here is I challenged Joe to send me, well, we can get in depth with the premise.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, I have learned an incredible new innovation of low effort animations. Joe has sent me five Magic the Gathering cards. I have adapted each of them to 5th edition D&D to the best of my ability, based on I took inspiration from the flavor of each given card, as far as like whatever lore I could find from like a cursory Google search and a few Wikipedia dives,
Uh-huh.
the mechanics listed on the card, and where possible, I took a lot of inspiration from like the meta value of a card. Um,
That is something that I was going to judge these on, so I wasn't sure if you would
I
play
yeah.
for that. I'm very happy to see that that thought did cross your mind.
All right. Without further ado, you and the YouTube world, are you ready?
Yes.
We'll take it. Card number the feist. Ach, Hans Run. So as you can see, Joe immediately did not super feel the spirit of the project, as this was intended to send me monsters
Oh, this could be a
that I
quest
could
or
then.
something. It's an enchantment. It
Uh,
exists.
that is true, and that was a bit of a challenge for me, so I really had to try and find a way to interpret this one. I think you'll like what I came up with. I had to get pretty creative for a couple of these.
Sure.
Yeah, I almost wish you had gone more like vanilla for the first one, so that you could put me through the ringer later, because I don't know how you would ever top this. But what I did for this was I made it a campaign rule that I call the
Okay.
crit fail cameo. So the idea is that when you would critically fail a check, you get that like nat 1 on your d20 roll. Rather than failing the check itself in some exceptional way, you just do a normal failure, but at DM discretion, some random creature appears that just crashes into your encounter for like 1d4 rounds, causes a ruckus, does whatever would make sense for that creature, and then leaves. So, like with Achan's Run, you you have your creature, it pops in, causes a bunch of chaos, and then it's gone from the game. And of
Well,
course,
yeah.
if you say run, it's the and then the name of the creature, then you give the player inspiration. So what this does is it also forces your game to kind of move forward by giving your player a chance to go from their failure and get like a little bit of extra inspiration of like a mechanical boost. And the creature doesn't necessarily have to be entirely hostile or like problematic. It could like turn or swing an encounter one way or another that could be, no matter what, really funny. What do you think?
Certainly on the hijinks shenanigans scale, it ranks pretty high. I don't know how truly usable this would be, but I do appreciate that it is very close to the original card.
Uh, yeah, you're gonna have to throw me a couple more like lobs if you want these to be more usable. if
Okay.
that's gonna be a recurring theme. I will admit there was at least one point in this process with one of these cards where I got just kind of frustrated and was like, "Oh, fine. Well, if you're, you know what? We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there. All right. So, card number the second. Joe sent me Visidrix. Now, this card is very near and dear to my heart because I started playing Magic the Gathering in 7th edition. Uh, Somewhere in Joe's house is my Learn to Play Magic the Gathering CD that I
Hmm.
used to first learn how to actually play the game, and it's probably the only reason I know how to actually use the rules for Magic to this day. Um, so the premise of Visidrix, for anybody who can't read the itty bitty eye strain font, is it's essentially a combination of a rabbit and a piranha. It's a big beefy boy, but it has no special abilities. Also notable, the card text specifically says a bored wizard once created a Visitrix out of a bunny and a piranha. He never made that mistake again. And I noticed that the Visitrix, if you look closely, is in fact humanoid shaped. It's bipedal. It has two arms.
Yeah.
So my interpretation of the Visitrix then is that it assumes that the wizard got merged with his creation in the process.
I'm
So
surprised to see this is only CR1. I feel like my immediate thought would have been higher for a 7 mana 6/6.
now I know I hear you, and I urge you to consider that the strength is 17, and also in the metagame, Visitrix is awful and useless. Uh,
Sure.
so my thinking was that it wasn't allowed to have particularly interesting abilities, and as with most things, dies to Doomblade.
True.
It seems like the generator on the homebrew seems to have played some games with the language section where it says cannot speak but understands none. That should say understands common. I don't know why it generated that, but it's a learning experience all around. Though in theory, if I put the share feature toggled, you could use a Visitrix yourself today. I will admit though, for what it's worth, Joe, unlike most of these, the Visitrix, somebody else had the same thought you had. And there
Okay.
actually is already several Visitrixes on D&D Beyond.
Well, you see, that's
Uh,
why I wanted to send the weird, obscure cards because I knew these vanilla ones were already going to be done.
oh yeah, but they made it like CR14 and gave it like a bunch of like bloody frenzy themed powers, and I was like, no, 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 you can't have that. My Visitrix is going to just be based on the stats for a tiger,
Sure.
except I gave it running leap and keen hearing, and I think I threw in the an attack that lions normally have. So it can run around, deal a bunch of damage, but you know, as we established, dies to Doomblade.
I can see it's got swim, which I imagine is the piranha half coming through.
Oh yeah, well I paired that with the keen hearing and the high perception. It also has dark vision from the rabbit half.
Oh,
So
is that a thing rabbits have?
I thought they could like see in the dark, can't they? Is that not a thing?
Maybe I don't know.
I
Again,
don't
it
know. I was
sounds
thinking
like a thing that could happen.
when I was very young, I saw a stage production of Bunnicula and it had red eyes, and I associate that with dark vision in my head. Um,
I'm
so the
surprised.
lore of
Yeah,
yeah, you were
I
saying?
was just gonna say I'm surprised to see it doesn't have a bite attack.
Yeah, I ended up not going with the bite. I was thinking more it has the giant claws, so it runs around, pounces on people, and like tears them apart. It's actually pretty vicious for low level. It could like, potentially zero to death like a player character of level one if it both gets a good hit in with the pounce attack, knocks somebody prone, and then can rend.
Yeah,
So like it's got some potential there for that damage output. The lore of this is that the like I said, the wizard gets combined with his own creation by accident, and that other wizards have since created them, and that the Visitrix just kind of roams coastal areas and islands ever since, uh, causing eating hapless villagers and the occasional bit of livestock wherever it goes, until of course some wizard finds it to summon it,
I
which
yeah. Go ahead.
will probably be a recurring theme with anything that's Magic the Gathering themed.
I do think the only thing I might have tried to play with this one is the fact that it is a blue creature and they don't generally have big, creatures. So I'm not sure exactly what you could have done with that, but I,
Well,
yeah,
I was thinking the high physical stats was going to like make up for like its otherwise weakness in the dying the Doomblade, but the main reason I was content with this challenge rating being low was to reflect its like kind of low usefulness.
yeah,
Uh, so that's where my head was at with this particular one. But there's still three more to go. Speaking of, card number the third, Swords to Plowshares. Now, not gonna lie, this one was also very tough, though I will admit it did not frustrate me as much as the other ones did.
Hmm.
So, for those of you listening to this and not watching it for some reason, Swords of the Plowshares, you remove a creature from the game entirely. Their controller gets life equal to their power, or to its power. Pretty hard to interpret. I was really, really stuck for a while until I came up with I made it a background.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So, Swords of the Plowshares, uh, the retired adventurer origin. Uh, So this uses the layout for the new 2024 Player's Handbook backgrounds. Um, the idea is that you used to be some type of famous adventurer of like whatever level, but since then you gave it all up to do like a, I don't know. You remember the Hound from Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of like gets hit on the head, and then he's like, ah, screw this. I'll just go and like hang out with like some like peasants and till dirt for a living. Uh, so you give all that up, you regress back to whatever level one you either were before or a level one of whatever new class that you start pursuing, because there's no reason you couldn't go one way or the other. Um, Gets you animal handling and persuasion like a merchant, but carpenter's tools like a farmer, which was the main inspiration.
So wait, where does the
Uh,
persuasion come in?
well, I included uh, the idea in this description that the the
Oh, you're a
retired adventurer is
storyteller?
a well, he's a storyteller and like a pillar of the community.
Gotcha.
Like
Okay.
he's somebody that like the young peasant kids, they all come and they want to like hear your stories like Bilbo Baggins style. Maybe you bother to tell them, maybe you don't. Uh and then otherwise it just pulls from the default for the farmer for the starting equipment.
Well, I do think, on a practicality standpoint, this is a type of archetype background that I think players have been interested in playing, but there wasn't a strict option for that. Maybe this is a little close to stepping on the toes of folk hero. I don't know if that crossed, if that thought
Well,
came up at all.
I think the folk hero, I'd have to double check if that's even in the new edition. I think it may have gotten cut or like folded in.
Oh, is
Uh,
this for the new edition?
Yeah, this is you can tell because I put ability scores in there, and in the new edition, your origin determines your ability score increase options rather than your species.
Ah, right.
Now,
Okay.
I am noticing that there are some stuff that I put in here that are not appearing, which I'm a little concerned about, but that's neither here nor there. There's supposed to be a feat that you get
Yeah, I was thinking
that
that.
yeah, the because every origin comes with a feat now that's like from a specific sublist of like origin feats.
Yeah,
So the retired adventurer, like part of the point is it sorts the plowshare. So I was thinking savage attacker, which is one of the origin feats now. So that's what's left of your memory of your history of violence.
I will say, if I was asked to interpret Swords to Plowshare, maybe this would have been too basic, but I would have made a spell that was basically Gios, something along those lines.
I was very, very tempted to do a spell. That was one of the iterations I was looking at, but there was nothing that could quite capture the like leaving the game as it were, and then also like the gaining life equal to toughness. So for this one I kind of went all in on the lore. I am noticing though that I've been burned once again by the homebrew creation thing because I put all this effort into like doing special stuff for the kit, and it's just showing the default farmer's kit after all that.
What'd you do?
uh I could bring it up for you, but I believe that would actually cause more chaos and would end the poor PowerPoint. But unless if I can bounce across time and space, on my phone to the D&D Beyond website and stall as I talk if the game would be so kind as to work. God forbid.
I feel like the guy in the art for Swords to Plowshare has like a scythe or something, honestly, or like a pitchfork. But you went with the sickle here. That seems like a interesting choice. Is that
Well,
out of
that's
anything?
actually that's from the default farmer.
Yeah.
Now, but if I can get it, here we go. I think they burned me on this one because oh god, the the pop-ups, there's no escape from the pop-ups, Joe. There's too many of them. Oh, okay, yeah. So it didn't actually display the gear properly. So the things that I was going to have it show up as include a mule,
Oh, nice.
carpenter's tools, healer's kit, sling, shovel, traveler's clothes, 20 gold, concealed as art, and rights to 1 acre of arable land.
That sounds fun.
Right?
I feel
Wonder
like
why.
kind of Roman soldier retired thing.
That's what I was going for.
All right. Well, yeah, I can dig it. I like it.
I For some reason the description of what you get is a separate input. So at the end of this presentation, as it were, I plan to post all of these on the D&D Beyond in case, God forbid, any of your listeners want to use them. And now, on top of it all, it'll actually display correctly because I was able to fix it in real time. So that was card number 3. Card number 4, the one where I finally got frustrated. Sword of Dungeons and Dragons.
I am certainly curious to see what you did with this.
This one vexed me. I was like, you gotta send me a parody card, an unglued card.
um, is this unglued? I feel like this is one of them special.
That's it's the newer unglued one. It's you can see the U on it. It has the traps and the villain set, whatever that was,
Oh, right. Yeah.
from before we got Thunder Junction. But yeah, +2/+2, protection from rogues, protection from clerics, and when you do damage, you get a 4/4 gold dragon creature token with flying and roll a d20 with a 5% chance of repeating the process. So behold the Meta Blade. I was like, well, if I'm gonna have to deal with all this nonsense, that's fine. I can make a weapon that's just plain ridiculous as well. So it uses a longsword as the base stats. Obviously, the Meta Blade has +2 to hit and damage, because of course.
Mm-hmm.
Um, can do slashing, piercing, or bludgeoning with each attack, so you can kind of change it up on the fly. After all, it's got like the mace and the Morning Star and the sword and all that on there.
Yeah.
Its main effect I call the Apotheosis Critical, or Apotheosis. Someday I'll learn how to pronounce that word, but it won't be today. So, you roll a natural 20 on your attack roll. If the character already knows that they are in a fictional game, then you conjure an adult gold dragon in the nearest empty space where it can fit, and it is beholden to your mental commands for 1 minute before flying away.
Interesting.
Yes. Though, we had to put a little bit of a balancing factor in there if the sword was to ever actually be used, which is why I included the Meta Blade Curse of Doom. And whenever you roll a natural 1 on an attack roll while wielding this weapon, all dragons that have been summoned by the Meta Blade regain all of their hit points and attempt to bring about your downfall without regard to their own morals or safety.
I do like that. Could certainly make for some fun moments.
I figure if you're including the Sword of Dungeons and Dragons in your game, then like you've already decided like screw this, I'm gonna just like make this as silly as possible anyway.
That's
Uh,
fair.
so yeah, that comes with a big boon and a big risk that will catch up with you eventually if you use it enough. And then finally, to reflect that protection, this was the hardest one to implement.
Yeah.
Um, I call it plot armor, spelled in the British way. Plot armor. Attacks against you cannot have advantage. So, what does that mean in practice? Immune to sneak attacks.
True. I like
At
that.
least at least the vast majority of sneak attacks. And while it's drawn, you can cast counterspell at will, which uses your reaction. So you're getting a counterspell a turn, but it can only target spells being cast with divine magic.
What's your DC?
I believe um it says you may cast counterspell, so then you're just casting counterspell uh at its default level. I think
Using
it's
int?
third level. It's a wizard spell, right? So it would use int, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I don't
maybe I
know
have
if
to.
I thought they specified that, but I don't remember. They also might have changed that with the new edition. I really don't know.
Yeah, there was they changed how they formatted, and I can't find anything in the book anymore, even though it's like in theory more ergonomically organized.
Yeah. I
Uh,
do
but
quite like those. That is a clever way of handling both pro rogues and pro cleric.
yeah, so that was probably the one part of this that's the most defensible. And then the sap thing is something that's from the new edition, where every weapon has like a special trait you can unlock if you are like a fighting class.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not me. That's on wizards. And then last, but uh, probably the least. Um, Now, Joe, I saw that you completed the assignment by
Yeah.
sending me 5 cards, but I feel like on a certain level you did not read the assignment
Oh, okay.
with sending me 5 Magic the Gathering cards. Because, viewers, when I asked Joe to send me 5 Magic the Gathering monsters for me to interpret into 5th edition D&D, he sent me a Magic the Gathering enchantment, an instance, one creature, an artifact, and a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
That's my Joker aspect coming out.
Uh, So yeah, this is the Thousand Eyes Restrict, Spellcaster Fusion, and the first ever effect card in Yu-Gi-Oh history. It is
Really?
level 1. It has 0 attack, 0 defense. Makes it so that your opponents can't change battle positions, which is a thing in Yu-Gi-Oh. They also can't attack. And once per turn, you just steal one of your opponent's creatures and then just absorb them into the Thousand Eyes Restrict.
Indeed.
And then if the Thousand Eyes would get destroyed by battle, the equipped monster gets destroyed instead. So what essentially happened is in order to do justice to this card, which for the record has its own interesting history because it's been banned in the past in Yu-Gi-Oh. Did you know that, Joe?
I'm not surprised, but I did not know that.
Oh, definitely worth a Google because there's a very funny series of references to it in later cards.
Huh.
Um, like there's a card I think it's called Ban or something, and it actually shows like a bunch of like monsters from Yu-Gi-Oh that were on the ban list like in a cage.
That is
And
pretty
then
good.
there's a sequel to that where it's referring to like monsters getting freed, and there's a little picture of like Thousand Eyes Restrict with like a handkerchief like waving to the other monsters on the ban list as he gets out of prison because he gets taken off the list. So yeah, this one was tough. So I have created the least fun to fight monster in all of Dungeons and Dragons.
Nice.
It has an armor class of 5 and a single hit point. Uh, it has the lowest stats of any monster for its whopping challenge rating of 14.
Yeah,
But you will note, Joe.
I can see
Oh,
it's immune to a lot.
it is immune to everything.
Yeah.
It has no. Well, it is vulnerable to all saving throws against spells. So it gets disadvantage on all saving throws.
Yeah.
So you can manipulate it. You just can't damage it because with one special exception. So believe it or not, this I started with a spectator beholder
Yeah.
as the starting point for this to try and find something that would work. Uh, I hope you enjoyed that I made it immune to being blinded. Uh, because oh God, I spent so much time on this one, Joe. It was like embarrassing. Do you have any idea what you've done to my YouTube algorithm? It is now filled with like crappy, like poorly edited clips of Maximilian Pegasus
It-
summoning Thousand Eyes Restrict.
I was curious if you were gonna incorporate his TV show appearance.
Well, I did in the description of the monster.
Okay.
Yes, born from the sacrifice of a mad god by an illusionist widower. It's a heinous and wholly evil embodiment of grief. Its foul eyes stare out at all the world, judging and finding all things wanting. Ageless, it wanders whatever plane it is currently inhabiting, mindlessly spreading suffering wherever it goes until being bound by a new master who would dare use such a vile creature. You
Oh.
know, cue lightning bolts and ominous music. Um, but the piece de resistance of this creature, despite all of its low stats and like comically low saving throws, is
Yeah.
its unwilling fusion effect, which is also a reference to like what it is.
Yeah.
So, as an action that's at will, it can cast banishment on a creature at DC 18 saving throw at level 6.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know if you've already read this effect, but for again the people just listening to it, if the target fails, they are sent to a demiplane that is visible and present inside the Thousand Eyes Restrict. And while the Thousand Eyes Restrict is concentrating on that spell, it essentially loses all of its damage immunities, but its hit point pool includes the creature that it's banished.
Interesting.
So it is possible to do damage to the Thousand Eyes Restrict, but only by doing so much damage to the banished creature that the banished creature dies. And then you do one extra point of damage.
Well, I kind of love this. I think this is far and away my favorite of the five cards.
Oh yeah. Well, I had to I have some sense of pacing, Joe, that they don't pay me the big bucks that they don't pay me in my master's program for to not have some sense of pacing. Uh but yeah, to top it all off, if you lose a friend to the Thousand Eyes Restrict, hitting it still damages it, which means it still has to check for concentration to see if it loses the banishment.
Yeah.
So you can still like whack it a couple of times. Sure, it hurts your friend, but eventually it'll spit your friend out, and then you can all run away
Uh huh.
until you can somehow trick it into like eating someone you don't like, and then you hit it really, really hard.
Well,
It's
you could just banish it, right?
You could banish it, though that only lasts for I think 10 rounds.
Really? Well, I guess
Oh,
does
actually,
it? Is this from the material plane?
uh, I made it an aberration.
I feel like
It's
that
not
presumes the whatever they call
far
it.
realm.
Yeah, the far realm.
Well, they actually changed how banishment works. Where now, like, depending on the creature type, if it stays banished for the full 10 rounds, it stays gone.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Oh yeah. So that is the Thousand Eyes Restrict. I hope you got a kick out of these,
But
Joe.
I really really love Thousand Eyes Restrict. I would definitely use that one. That was great.
Oh, oh yeah. Hopefully we get to do this again because all told, I do want to know what not just you think, Joe, but what Manling Joe's viewers think. What card should I try next? Please let Joe know in the comments below, and he'll find his favorite ones that will upset me the most.
Well, I
Uh,
think what I've learned is I should say more Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
please don't. Oh God, anything but that. That oh God, that would give me a stroke. Oh God, anything but that. Oh man. Also, I wanted to make sure that I could, do a little bit of a public service announcement, because as a bonus, real true science fact, people who like and subscribe are 69% more likely to curve out in all children's card games that they play.
Well, yeah, you can't miss out on that free curve out.
Oh yeah. So hook Mandling Joe up with some more views, some more likes, some more subscriptions, so that he can torment me additionally. And I will see you for the next one.
Goodbye, everybody.